On the podcast today, we are talking to the Minister for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, Andrew Muir, about the controversy around his signature nutrient action programme, On the podcast today, we are talking to the Minister for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, Andrew Muir, about the controversy around his signature nutrient action programme, which has been designed to help clean up Lough Neagh. We will be asking him why this is the right approach and if he has a plan B given the calls for the policy to be scrapped. We're also going to be talking about the internal division within the DUP as the Belfast Telegraph reports a rift between the party and their councillors. The Communities Minister has been criticised for a post on Facebook about the violence in parts of East Belfast. Sorry, I'm going to do that bit again. Sorry. Apologies, Andrew. We're also going to be talking about the internal division in the DUP as the Belfast Telegraph report a rift between the party leadership and their councillors. This also comes as the Communities Minister Gordon Lyons has been criticised for a post on Facebook about violence in parts of East and North Antrim which targeted migrants. Let's start with the Nutrient Action Programme. The NAP's intention is to improve water quality by reducing the pollution caused by agricultural activity. 62% of nutrient load in waterways can be traced back to agriculture. This week, 7 leading agri-food sector organisations in Northern Ireland have jointly instructed solicitors to issue a letter to Minister Andrew Muir calling for the immediate withdrawal of the public consultation. Lough Neagh has been in the headlines for years now due to the appearance of algae and fears that other lochs are at risk of similar harm. The NAP has been strongly opposed by the DUP, UUP and Sinn Féin, who say there will be issues for farmers in achieving the policy's aims. And last week, the Assembly passed a motion by 52 votes to 23 to scrap the policy altogether before the consultation has even closed. That's due to happen on the 24th of July. Now, to go through all this process, we have the Minister behind these proposals, Andrew Muir, with us today. Andrew, you're very welcome to Stormont Sources.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite to take part.
Andrew, first question to you. So for our listeners who might not be farmers or they may not live in rural communities, why is the NAP so important?
So the NAP is probably one of the better known acronyms within my department in recent times, the Nutrients Action Programme. It's been in place for many years, since 2007, and it's there to ensure better management of nutrients from agricultural sources. And there's a requirement to review it every number of years, and that's overdue. Last time the review was done was in 2019. And what we're out to do is consult on a number of proposals in terms of new measures and also strengthening the existing ones. These are draft proposals. It is a public consultation. No final decisions have been taken. I am blue in the face saying that. But we do need to address the challenges within our waterways. Our rivers, lakes and lochs are in a perilous state. Lough Neagh is a prime example of that. In numerous years, we're seeing blue-green algae blooms appearing in Lough Neagh, and we need to find a way to turn that around. And the NAP consultation is about how we tackle that 62% in terms of agricultural sources, in terms of poor water quality. But also alongside that, I have a process in place to look at strengthen regulation and enforcement around wastewater infrastructure, because it's important we do that. And time's not on our side with this. We've suffered the impact of cycles of crisis and collapse and also indecision making in relation to these things. And we do need to face up to these difficult decisions.
Okay, and Andrew, I watched the debate last week in the Chamber, the DUP motion, which was brought by the party's deputy leader, Micheal McKernan, on this issue about scrapping the consultation altogether. I mean, it was pretty heated. So you were kind of almost being accused by some in the Chamber as leaning more toward the E side of DAERA, the environment side, instead of agriculture. So, I mean, is that actually your intention and your aim to balance the department away from kind of the more agricultural side to the environment side?
So when I took up post in February of last year, it was very clear I was going to deliver upon the full remit of the department, and that's what I am doing. And I am giving a lot of energy and a lot of time in terms of ensuring a sustainable future for farming and agriculture, and that's both financial and environmental sustainability, and both go hand in hand. The challenges that I inherited in terms of the agricultural brief as part of the department are extremely significant. I inherited a judicial review which was successful in relation to TB, I inherited a situation where the Office of Environmental Protection had taken legal action in relation to ammonia. We also inherited a real challenge in terms of water quality, and also all those EU exit issues that have caused great uncertainty in terms of the farming community. Then we had inheritance tax being landed upon us in terms of that decision, and also the illusion of ring fencing funding for farming. But what I've done is I've not shied away from these issues. Like previous ministers, I've faced up to them and I'm working through it, because these are big issues. It's a time of immense change within farming in Northern Ireland, and I'm determined to be able to grasp these issues and get us on an even keel.
And what did you make of? So obviously you're sitting there, and I know I probably shouldn't, but I almost felt for you a wee bit, just in terms of you seem to be getting it from all sides, really, and some of the debate was pretty intense. I mean, whenever you were listening to the contributions of, it was opposed by the DUP, Ulster Unionists, and Sinn Féin. I mean, what was going through your mind whenever you heard some of the contribution? I mean, the criticism was you're not collaborating enough with farmers, you're not taking the farming community with you on these proposals. I mean, what's your response to all that?
So I think it probably highlights some of the challenges within our sort of system of government here. This is a mandatory coalition. It's an arranged marriage. It's very different than any other previous coalitions. And the ability to take difficult decisions was perhaps best demonstrated as part of that debate, because this is not decisions. This is a consultation. And if we cannot consult and engage with people about proposals, then I do worry about the ability to deliver upon the programme for government and deal with those challenging issues that are facing us. And I've been around Lough Neagh on a number of occasions. I was there in March of last year with the First Minister and Deputy First Minister. I made it clear when I was there that difficult interventions are going to be required. And it does seem that people talk the talk but don't walk the walk in terms of dealing with those difficult issues. I am working really hard to bring the farming community with me. That's why I extended the consultation by an additional 4 weeks, so we could get views in regards to what are draft proposals in relation to this. I know these are difficult, but I also had a very frank meeting with the Infrastructure Minister in terms of wastewater infrastructure, because that situation is not acceptable either.
Okay. And just before I kick over to Michael on this, Andrew, in terms of actually it looks like even though it is still out for consultation and to save your face going blue, I know it's still got time to run, but it does look like there's no appetite between the two main parties in the executive, the DUP and Sinn Féin, to pursue any of these proposals. So I'm just wondering, is there a plan B in your pocket that you're probably going to need to reach for?
Yeah, look, we have to deal with this issue of water quality in Northern Ireland, not just because of the biodiversity collapse, but also 40% of our drinking water comes from Lough Neagh. And if we don't get real in relation to this issue, I really worry about the future of Northern Ireland. And we'll be having a discussion about this in a few years' time, going, we should have taken action at the time. So I've been very clear in setting out the process ahead that, yes, there's a consultation underway. What I want to do is get a small stakeholder group together to go through the responses to the consultation and to be able to build a consensus around this so I can bring final proposals to the executive. I am committed to engagement. I'm doing a lot more engagement over the time ahead, and that's what we need to do. I've also been very clear that the proposals that are out for consultation will not be the finalised proposals I will present to the executive, because it's a consultation. And I do think there's an element of consultation fatigue. There's perhaps people feeling that consultations are just a tick box, but it's not like that for me. If people spend their time genuinely responding to consultations, and nearly 200 people have done that so far in relation to this, then we owe it to them to properly consider their responses.
Yeah,
Michael,
welcome to Stormont Sources, Minister. I can't help but think that having responsibility for Lough Neagh is like lying on a bed of nails. It's there's no easy way out of this. And I should declare an interest. I'm sitting here less than a mile from the biggest leisure and tourism complex on the Lough. And I'm aware of the growing ire among my neighbours about the lack of action on the pollution. And they'll be very much on your side of things, as opposed to side of your political colleagues. And some of them would actually be very surprised, in particular at the view Sinn Féin has taken over all of this, and perhaps would consider that they are movable on some aspects of this. Anyhow, the NAP is just one of a series of recommendations in the Lough Neagh Action Plan, which you presented, which was approved by your colleagues. And in it, and it makes for depressing reading, in it says that even if you manage to stop all of the pollution, it would take up to 40 years for the loch to recover to its best state. That means that people in their 50s plus will never see a clean Lough Neagh, no matter what you do. That's the level of urgency here. So in relation to the NAP, what can you do if your political opponents are opposed to it? I take your point about consultation. You're only consulting.
Yeah, so Michael, it's good that you've read the Lough Neagh report, because it's a really important and concise summary of the challenges we face and actions that the executive agreed that I would take, which is one of them is to review and consult upon the Nutrients Action Programme. So this shouldn't be a surprise for people. It came out in July of last year. The issue you highlight is in relation to the sediment. That research that's been undertaken is that there's quite a high level of phosphorus within the sediment, and that will take approximately 40 years for that to be released. So in order to get ourselves moving and to turn this situation around, first of all, we need to reduce the nutrient overload going into the loch, and that's slurry, manure, synthetic fertilisers, and also sewage, and that's what we need to do. We already have the Nutrients Action Programme in place, and it's important that that is abided by. That's why we have an enforcement task force in the Lough Neagh catchment area to ensure that people are sticking by the rules. And can I just say, the vast overwhelming majority of farmers play by the rules and are pretty annoyed at the ones that are the rule breakers in relation to this, and that's where my focus
if you got
will
the
always
pollution
be.
reduced, the agricultural runoff reduced by 50%, that would be a very substantial achievement on your part, but it wouldn't clean Lough Neagh.
Well, everything's going to take time, because this was decades in the making, and it'll be decades in the fixing. And just have to look back in terms of how do we get to this position. We got to this position through probably three sort of fundamental actions. One, in terms of septic tanks and the proliferation of those. We need to make sure that they're better managed, and we've got a programme of works where we're looking at better education and awareness in terms of management of that. Underinvestment in wastewater infrastructure, massive issue. That's actually walked ourselves into a crisis, not just in Lough Neagh, but also in terms of Belfast Lough and many other areas. And we need a plan to get out of that. My plan, from an enforcement and regulation perspective, is to end the buy ball that any water got since 2007 in terms of prosecutions due to historic underinvestment. There is a special arrangement known as SORPI. And then also the other issue is the intensification of agriculture, which was done under the brand name of Going for Growth. There's significant consequences that have occurred as a result of that, and we need to be very conscious going forward that we learn lessons from the past.
Yeah, just on SORPI, is it not like the NAP? You're just going to face political opposition to it. For our listeners, SORPI is the regulatory arrangement that allows Northern Ireland Water to pollute the watercourses and Lough Neagh. And you're proposing to remove that exemption, Minister. You'll be stopped from doing that. You'll have to bring that to executive, won't you?
Yeah. So I will be bringing it to the executive. SORPI is another acronym in my department. Lots of acronyms. The department's an acronym. And this was put in place in 2007, which essentially said that we would take into account the historic underinvestment before we look at regulation and enforcement activity against NI Water. And I just don't believe that's right, that we have a special dispensation for one of the polluters in Northern Ireland. NI Water is a corporate polluter, and I just don't think it's right, particularly for farmers, that there's special arrangements set up for NI Water. So if people are going to actually...
Are they capable of stopping the pollution? I mean, if you made it illegal for them, are they actually physically capable of stopping it?
So what this does is it creates perverse incentives, because if there is an exemption there, then obviously you would look differently in terms of your investment profiles and how you tackle this. And I just think that's wrong. And like, if people are going to, the debate that was on last week, if people are serious about this and they want to deliver for agri-food and farming more generally, then we need to have a level playing field in regards to this. The NI Water and DFI have got until the beginning of next month to come back to me, and then I'll take a final decision and proposal to the executive. But, I am frustrated that, I've seen so many photographs of people down by the loch going, oh, this is terrible. well, you need to do more than saying it's terrible. You need to take action in regards to it. And I am stretching myself in terms of consultation and engagement. But, there's only so long you can kick a can down the road until you actually have to face up to issues here. And time is not on our side.
Yes, we've seen a lot of dissembling around the impact of climate change on zebra mussels, but the really big hitter is pollution. And as David said, 60+% of that is coming from agricultural runoff, nearly a quarter from Northern Ireland water. And then you have the industry, and then you have the septic tanks for the domestic, making the 100. So you have a plan for each of those, but each time you will have to go back to the executive to get approval. So can I just put it to you that there might be a plan B in the acceleration of waste to energy and biomethane production? And I noted that in the action plan there are joint actions between DAERA and other departments, but not a joint action between DAERA and the Department of the Economy. And if those two departments together accelerated the use of biogas, they might take a big piece of the problem away from farmers, and you might get more progress.
Yeah, so we're exploring that. Yeah, we're exploring that with economy, and there's a sustainable utilisation of livestock slurry, SULS, another acronym, that we're taking forward, and that will essentially provide a real avenue for the better management of nutrients. So there's 37 actions in the Lough Neagh Action Plan, and one of which is a review and consultation upon revised proposals around NAP. There's many others in regards to this. There's the investment strategy that the executive has to agree and publish, and I'm very clear that needs to focus on investment in wastewater infrastructure, because we need to be able to deal with not just the environmental consequences, but also then the house building and economic development that's been inhibited as a result of the lack of investment in wastewater infrastructure. A report came out from the Fiscal Council recently. I know there's another report coming from businesses around this, and we do need to look at better ways forward.
I just wonder, Andrew, hearing you talk, just for Tim, to a final question to you.
Yeah.
You talked there about the time for kicking the can down the road on a number of different issues is quickly coming to an end. I mean, in the 16, 17 months now you've been in this department, and you're the lead minister to tackle Northern Ireland's response to the climate emergency. I mean, is the Assembly serious on this, do you think? I mean, because it seems to be, some quarters will do the photos, but then when it comes to the concrete measure of tackling it, people seem to run away. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, so the political debate around climate change, I'm conscious of how that played out in the run-up to the Assembly agreeing the legislation, and that was unanimously agreed at final reading. And we have a situation now where both the DUP and TUV are taking a much more sceptical stance in regards to it, which I think is grossly irresponsible, because climate change is the biggest threat to farming in Northern Ireland, and we've seen the reality of that. We will continue to take actions as a department, but as an executive, we need to do this together, because there's many sectors that sit beyond my department, particularly in relation to energy and transport, and also housing and buildings, that we need to take action to reduce our emissions. And I'm very, very clear that this is a marathon towards the road to net zero, and we're not even across the start line in that regard. So people need to be understanding there is benefits with this, and we've seen many examples across Northern Ireland, Wrightbus, Artemis, many others who are sort of delivering that green growth for us and delivering those good quality jobs in Northern Ireland. So I'm focused on that. I'm disappointed at some of the discourse. I think it seems that some parties are going looking more for wedge issues rather than actually facing the issues and delivering for their citizens. But that's for them to be able to account for their own positions that they've decided to take.
And just on the discourse, I mean, and this is separate. Sorry, apologies, Tim. And but just you received a death, because I don't think be remiss, so it's not that you received a death threat, not related to the political party chat, but you did receive a death threat that you spoke about the other week. I mean, in terms of some of the heated topics around that, I mean, it's, what does that do in terms of your ability to tackle the issue when you're receiving things like that?
I was just to say that was received, and it was a Zoom call organised by an organisation to discuss the NAP, and it was very disappointing and a bit disconcerting, frankly, but it doesn't reflect the wider farming community at all. They've welcomed me into their homes on many occasions, and it doesn't deter me, because I know the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland want to see government to deliver for people, want us to be able to have respectful discussions around matters, which is generally what we do. And I think that we just have to focus on the greater picture here. The restoration occurred last February. We've lost how many years with up and down government and all the rest of it. People just want stable government that's focused upon things. And there is an issue here that there's, frankly, far too many motions being debated in the chamber and not enough legislation. So there's quite a lot of legislation coming through. It's now coming through pretty steadily. The fact that we've had to wait that while is because of the issue of stop-go government in Holyrood or in Cardiff. You see everyone moving from mandate to mandate in terms of legislation. The sooner we can be debating legislation and actually doing that, I think that would actually help raise the public's respect for these institutions, because legislation is the meat that we as an assembly should be looking at.
Okay, Tim.
Yeah, you'll be relieved that I don't know this in the level of detail that Michael does. So the technical questions are over. I just want to zero in just really on the politics, because it feels to me like you can say this is a consultation, but I've never come across a consultation that has deviated massively from where the consultation document is. Yes, there's tinkering around the edges, and yes, there might be 5, maybe even 10% of that consultation document that changes, but where you're set, the course you're set on is pretty much set in your consultation, and it feels to me that's dead. That's dead in the water. And David asked you earlier on, what's the plan B? Because it feels now this is now a hugely controversial issue. This is going to be set by the executive. The executive don't agree with you. The executive are not going to agree with you, in 6 months' time. So what are we doing right now? Would it not be better just to say, look, okay, we've got proposals here that aren't going to fly. Let's pause these proposals, because that's the reality of the government that we have, and try and work with executive colleagues to bring something else forward that can then be consulted on positively.
Yeah, so on the other side of that argument, I have a letter that arrived from the Office of Environmental Protection outlining their concerns in regards to the Nutrients Action Programme, and you would argue saying I should do more. And there's an issue here that there's a history in this department receiving challenges, whether from regulators or in the courts, in terms of not meeting our obligations around things. So I'm trying to marry both together. I've been very clear that I want to get stakeholders around the table over the summer, so then we can get a finalised proposals which are workable at farm level and people can have confidence with, that I can bring to the executive. I'm very keen to do that, but I'm also trying to match off the fact that the environmental dashboard in Northern Ireland is flashing red, and I'm trying to find a way to ensure that we can find a path here which is workable at farm level, which has buy-in, but also meets our environmental obligations. And that's what I'm trying to do. This is a challenging department. It is a myriad of opportunities, and I'm really enjoying that, but also real serious challenges which were in my in tray, and I'm trying to work through it in an honest and open manner. The easiest thing for me to do would have been to sort of ignore these things and sort of let things trundle along, which has occurred previously, but I am facing up to one of the difficult issues. And when I get a letter from the Office of Environmental Protection, like any minister would do, I do pay heed to it.
Well, do you think maybe we've come time where we just need to reform the executive, and it's just the two big parties that form that executive? Because it does seem to me that if you're a smaller party in that executive, and that's not just now, this is going back to when devolution was set up on the Belfast Agreement. If you're a smaller party in that executive, it just doesn't work. We just need to have reform. Just have the two big parties in there, let them be the government, and have the other parties waiting as a viable opposition. Is it just time that we do that? Is this NAP really an example of how we just need to go to that two-party system?
So I believe in power sharing. I believe that we should work together around issues. This is like a relationship, and relationships have ups and downs. And sometimes the best thing in a relationship is to talk, because if it's all picture and no sound, perhaps that doesn't work. And that's something I've been encouraging in the executive, that we talk through things. And that's resulted in us getting an agreement on certain things where we discuss through our concerns, we see how they can be addressed. And I think to credit to the executive in terms of recent weeks, where I did say, look, they're stuck here. Can we find a way through that? We sat in a room, we talked through it. That's what we need to do. We shouldn't have to require marriage guidance from the UK government on a regular basis, where mummy and daddy have to come along and essentially say, can we help? And some other partners walk out of the house, and then we have to take 2 years to get them back in again, because coming back in again, sometimes relationships aren't the best because people remember the fact you've left. So that's what we need to do. And I just think the institutions, there's one element, there was Fresh Start Agreement in 2015, and there was stuff there which is not in law. For example, there's a requirement that if there's papers still in circulation, that it should be on the agenda. These are the papers in circulation. These are the areas requiring resolution. I think that should be a requirement that you just face up to that and you talk that through around it all, because unfortunately what the system of government we have at the moment, it does incentivise that all pitch or no sound type of arrangement, and we need to be able to talk through it. Look, there's a landing zone in relation to the NAP, and I'm confident we'll get to it. It's a difficult journey, but I'm confident we'll work through this. Let's take a brighter perspective. We've got a programme for government agreed. It was quite a long time before we actually got one agreed. We've had budgets agreed. We're looking towards a 3-year budget. These are difficult relationships. We all come from different perspectives, but also I do respect my executive colleagues, and we might be frustrated around it all, but it's best that we try to work together for people.
Okay. Well, look, Minister, thank you very much for coming along and for talking to us today about this, actually a policy issue. So we're always up for talking about policy on this podcast. Yeah. Agriculture and Environment Minister Andrew Muir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Andrew, can you just hang on for just 20 seconds? Just to make sure it uploads, and then Paul will beam on here just to